Hi, this is Kelsey Blaho, and this is for EDL 850, Module 4, Religion in Schools. So I'm going to be speaking to the school board during a meeting this summer, and so this is what we're going to be talking about today during our meeting. So we're going to be talking about, again, religion in schools. So more specifically, here's some court rulings about religion and different aspects of it within the school system. So I highlighted in yellow kind of the main topic of each one. So for instance, this first one, excused from school for religious reasons. So Zorak versus Clausen, the court upheld an arrangement by which public schools excused students during the school day so they could attend religious classes away from school property. So this is the Pew Research Center. This is just one example. Another is Bible reading in public in 1962. I know it's a while ago, but still very relevant. Engel versus Vital, that school-sponsored prayer, even non-secretion prayer, violated the Establishment Clause. Since then, the Supreme Court has pushed forward from banning organized Bible reading for religious and moral instruction in 1963 to prohibiting school-sponsored prayers at high school football games in 2000. So again, another Pew Research Center. And then school-sponsored prayer, this is more specific to school-sponsored. In Engel versus Vital, so similar to the one above, the Supreme Court held that the Establishment Clause prohibited the recitation of a school-sponsored prayer in public schools. So, just more in depth on that. Here's a couple more. School-sponsored religious exercises. So in Abington School District v. Shemp, the court ruled broadly that school sponsorship of religious exercises violates the Constitution, according to Pew Research Center, 2019. And then school-sponsored reciting prayer before games. So again, kind of tying into that last one I was talking about with football games in 2000, so a little bit more recent. For instance, the Supreme Court ruled in Santa Fe, Independent School District v. Stowe, that schools may not sponsor student-recited prayer at high school football games. Another Pew Research Center. And then according to the U.S. Department of Education, 2020, so this was very recent, Section 8524 of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act in 1965, as amended by the Every Student Succeeds Act, requires the Secretary to issue guidance to the state educational agencies, local educational agencies, and the public on constitutionally protected prayer. So constitutionally protected prayer in public elementary and secondary schools. So there's a public protected prayer component as well. And this was just changed in 2020. So I tried to break this down by different rights of different people that might be involved. So rights of students. So students acting on their own have the same right to engage in religious activity and discussion as they do engage in comparable secular activities. So again, acting on their own I think is the big component there, so they can talk about stuff on their own. Students may offer a prayer or blessing before meals in school or assemble on school grounds for religious purposes to the same extent as other students who wish to express their personal views or assemble with others. So again, another Pew Research one. So again, students can assemble and do things kind of on their own. Students may not engage in religious harassment of others or compel other students to participate in religious expression, and schools may control aggressive and unwanted pulsatizing. Pew Research Center. Schools may neither favor nor disfavor students or groups on the basis of their religious identities. Pew Research Center. So again, these are just some rights of students. So here's a few more. So more specifically, we talked a little bit about the protective prayers. So students may organize prayer groups, religious clubs, and see you at the poll gatherings before school at the same extent that students are permitted to organize other non-circular or secular student activity groups. So this is from the U.S. Department of Ed. Students may pray when not engaged in school activities or instructions. Also the U.S. Department of Ed. And then a religious expression, so students may express their beliefs about religion in homework, artwork, and other written and oral assignments free from discrimination based on the religious perspective of their submission. U.S. Department of Ed. So I think it's also important for teachers to know, too, that they can express that stuff in homework as well. So some rights of the parents and kind of what they can do. so parents can opt out of certain things. So McCollum versus Board of Education, 1948. Again, a little bit older, but I feel like it's still relevant. The High Court invalidated the practice of having religious instructors from different denominations enter public schools to offer religious lessons during the day to students whose parents requested them. So they can also opt in. A key factor in the decision was that the lessons took place in the schools. So parents can opt in and opt out of different things. So the Supreme Court has interpreted them as protecting the rights of parents to shape and control the education of their children. When they object to certain school practices, the parents often seek permission from their children to skip the offending lesson or class to opt out, rather than try to end the practice school-wide. So these are both from Pew Research, so they can either opt in or opt out of different things. So this is just some reminders and rights for teachers in schools, so just more specific on the school end. In these other decisions, the court has repeatedly stressed that the Constitution prohibits public schools from indoctrinating children in religion. Pew Research Center. And then the Supreme Court's decision about officially sponsored religious expression in schools consistently draw a distinction between religious activities such as worship or Bible reading, while are designed to inculcate religious sentiments and values and teaching about religion, which is both constitutionally permissible and educationally appropriate. So again, the teaching about is the key word there. And then moreover, the courts have said no student should be forced to sing or play music that offends their religious sensibilities. Therefore, schools must allow students the option not to participate. Pew Research Center. What is less clear is how public school systems should draw the line between teachers' official duties and their own time. So this is where it can kind of get a little bit tricky. In general, the courts have ruled that public schools have substantial discretion to regulate the religious expression of teachers during instructional hours. So depending on how the teacher views religion, there again needs to be regulated, especially when students are required to be present. So big thing there, that schools can kind of regulate that. When acting in their official capacities as representatives of the state, teachers, school administrators, and other school employees are prohibited by the First Amendment from encouraging or discouraging prayer and from actively participating in such activities with students. This is from the U.S. Department of Ed. And then public schools may not provide religious instruction, but they may teach about religion. So that's kind of what I was hinting at earlier. This is also the U.S. Department of Ed. So just looking at the standard correlation, so how did it relate to it? This assignment demonstrated correlation between CLO 6.3 because we had to look at the laws, regulations around religion in schools, what is allowed, what is not allowed. We also had to analyze a few articles that looked at a variety of court cases and how that has affected religion in schools and what schools can do about it. And then how did you evaluate the role-play situation with regard to legal, ethical, and equity issues? I evaluated the situation to legal, ethical, and equity issues and tried to approach it more as an informational talk rather than blaming anyone or doing anything wrong. I just wanted to get information out to the board so everyone was on the same page. So how did I analyze the law and policy were applied consistently, fairly, equitably, ethically within my presentation? So again, I tried to just make it about the facts. I just took the information included in the resources and presented it in a way that was easy to understand for the board, saying here's different people's rights, here's different court cases and kind of what happened, and just kind of went from there. And how did I communicate policies, laws, regulations, procedures to appropriate school stakeholders? I split it up into different sections, making it easy to follow. Parent side, court rulings, teacher and school side. This way they know what their role is and what is allowed and what isn't. How would you monitor and ensure adherence to laws, policies, and regulations in the future? So I do this by new staff trainings, just making sure everyone's kind of on the same page, going over it in staff meetings, just making sure that everyone knows kind of what the boundaries are with that. And then if something does come up, I'd handle it swiftly. Relevant, because again, as a future administrator, I'll need to be able to address any issues that come up with students. For instance, if there's like a club or something that happened, or a conversation with student and staff in regards to religion in the classroom. This assignment helped me to fully understand what is allowed, what's not, and then if something does come up, kind of how to handle it. So I think this really helped me with that. Reflection. This assignment will influence the decision I make as a school leader, so I'll make sure to keep any of my religious beliefs out of the classroom, and that I'll make sure all staff are aware of the policies around religion. And then here's my references. Thank you.